An interesting thing happened in the wee hours of this morning. Richard Spencer, you could say founder of the alt-right movement from 2016, rolled up to Tariq's Twitter space conversation. And let me tell you something. I gotta be honest. It was very productive. I took notes of everything. And I'm going to give you my take on it and why I feel that the conversation, because Tariq recorded it, is going to show you that many white people are more in favor of black people getting reparations than black immigrants. Let's get into it, shall we? Good afternoon. Thank you for stopping by. It's your grandma Analytical, and I'm coming to you live straight out of NYC on this beautiful Sunday afternoon. So I was up this morning. I have insomnia, so I didn't go to bed until after 5 o'clock. So I was trying to go to sleep comfortably. So I looked at the time, and I was like, oh, it's after 2 o'clock. And Tariq's Twitter space notification popped up on my phone. And I really enjoy Tariq's Twitter spaces. So I basically was like, let me listen to it. And the conversation was pretty much simple. It had to do with, we have to be careful with the fake reparations. So in other words, we can't have people who say they're going to support reparations, but then turn around and then say, I'm supporting reparations for black people, but all black people, or I'm supporting reparations for Foundation of Black Americans, but it's not really tangible. So many people were talking, and I gotta say, this one was the most productive because everyone was speaking with, you could tell, except for the first guy that I heard, he was kind of clownish, but everybody else, even the police guy who was anti-Ashkenazi Jew, there were certain things that he was saying about black people that he was like, yeah, I pretty much, I don't have an issue with black people. So I'm like, okay, this is really interesting. But there was a black woman who had a white Hispanic father. She was goofy, but in all, it was a really productive conversation. So all of a sudden, Tariq says, oh, snap. Is this the Richard Spencer, the famous Richard Spencer? So he was like, Richard Spencer's here. So Richard Spencer pulls up and he's like, hello, Tariq. This is the real Richard Spencer. And so they begin a conversation. So this were how the conversation started. So Tariq basically bitches that he is the alt-right movement founder. So Richard Spencer says, you can kind of say that. I didn't really found it, but I was like one of the leaders of the movement. So then he basically admits that he was Trump 2016. And he left the alt-right movement around that time because he said it was just intellectually bankrupt. Now, the great irony of him saying that is that Richard Spencer had to file for bankruptcy about 2 years prior to the Trump 2020 election. But he said he was totally against it. And he said that tweeting about Trump basically started to bore him. And he pretty much said that the Trump 2016 movement was the better movement because it was more intellectually honest. And you had people that were really out there for Trump, wanting to really change the country for the better. And you didn't have these like intellectually bankrupt people that really could hold a conversation. And I'm going to be honest with you. The Trump 2016 movement really did start out like that. But then it got goofy once he got elected and he was campaigning in 2018. That's when you had all these goofballs, like all the people that's now supporting DeSantis. Those are the goofy ones that really was bringing that heavy racism to the Trump campaigns, like that real like dumb stuff they were saying, that goofy stuff, they was bringing that around 2017, 2018. But that's another topic. But the most important topic that they spoke about was reparations. So Tariq Nasheed asks Richard Spencer, what do you think of reparations for foundational Black Americans? And this is what he says. He says, I think reparations is a good idea. He also says that reparations, you have to basically understand the crime and trauma that took place against foundational Black Americans. You have to repair the damage. But you have to also be clear about who gets the reparations. So it has to go to lineage. It has to be based on lineage. So he says that it has to be for those who were enslaved here. And the fact that we never got anything post-slavery, it really makes our justice claim for reparations even more sufficient and substantial. But he also said something that I thought was interesting. And he said that the problem that is going about the conversation of foundational Black Americans getting reparations is the Black immigrant population has expanded within the last 30 years. So you have a lot of Black people coming from Africa the last 30 years, and many of them are not just not supportive of our reparations claim, but the problem is a lot of the tangibles that we would have received or we used to receive, those resources are now going to them. So he was saying that it's not just a reparations claim for money, but it's also resources. And him and Tariq Nasheed, they had a dialogue 5 years ago, and they had a debate. But the one thing, even in that debate, and including this conversation, he never disrespected Black people. He never did. Richard Spencer basically bigs up whiteness without really trying to tear down like Black people as a whole. Now, he also mentions that the debt should also be paid, just like it should be paid to Native Americans. And Tariq Nasheed was the person that was saying that, and Richard Spencer agreed. Now, Richard Spencer agreed with it because he lives on the Pacific Northwest coast, and he says the way Native Americans are living and treated is really bad. But Tariq checked him respectfully. He said, many Native Americans, they got reparations. They also get cash payments, and they make money from casinos. Now, side note, if they're not getting money from that, if the reparations hasn't been allocated to them properly, then that's bad. But they've been awarded reparations going back to like 1989, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. Now, he also believes in winning. You know, he still believes in winning. And he also believes that the reparations claim has to be serious. Like, it just can't be talk. Like, you have to basically instill in your people that you want to win. Because even though Richard Spencer is rebranding himself, he doesn't want to be considered alt-right. He still believes in winning. Because that was what the alt-right movement was about. White supremacists winning and not dying out. And to basically segue into that part of the dying out, Tariq Nasheed asks him about, the movement of the far right was really about saving the race of white people based on the numbers. And it was really about how do we save the white race from dwindling? Because in a couple of decades, he openly admitted this, and I heard him say that we're not going to exist. I heard him say this in 2016. He also talked about the causes of it was the birth rates are low, in that you have educated white people that don't want to have kids. But you have uneducated, inept, intellectually dumb white people that are having all the kids. So he wants to see intellectually successful white people produce. Because what's going to happen is that if they don't produce, and the Billy Joes still produce, they're going to die out because they're not going to be able to be intellectually competitive in this world that we're living in, because the world is more advanced than it was 100 years, 200 years ago. Now, I'm saying that part, but that's pretty much the gist of it. Now, he did acknowledge that he called Tariq Nasheed a black nationalist. Tariq is like, I'm not a black nationalist. I'm pro FBA. I'm basically for my people. He's like, I get that, but, I see you basically as the same person as myself. So there's a saying which a lot of black people don't agree with, but a lot of white people like to throw it there. They say that black people and white people are more alike than unalike. And that's a topic for debate for another day. But in this conversation, they agreed on practically almost everything. So Tariq brings up the wall. And he said that the Trump 2016 campaign, when it came to the wall, was very much existential. So he said the wall was like a visual nations, in that people voted for Trump and they believed in him because when he said we're going to build a wall, people saw it happening. People believed in the vision of it. So 2016 Trump was more of a visionary. He was more of a person that was believable to make things happen because of his success as a billionaire, even though that's in question also, but these people believed it. But the thing about 2020 Trump, he let a lot of people down, mainly because he didn't really, even though they did start construction on the wall, he didn't come through on a lot of those promises. So Richard Spencer basically was one of the people that was like, I'm leaving, deuces. But he also said that white America is going to end without a wall if we don't save ourselves. So, speaking of the saving yourselves, or saving themselves, because this is the part where he's basically talking about his own people. Richard Spencer basically says that many problems that white people are having are the same things that Tariq mentions. And I'm saying this. And they both agree on the movement of sexual confusion is damaging the black community and the white community. But the thing is that Tariq looked at it more as a community. He didn't look at it as like a race, but Richard Spencer said it's damaging the white race. And Richard Spencer said that the problem with birth control and the problem with a lot of congenital diseases within the last decades has to do with birth control. So you have white people taking birth control. This is from his perspective. And you have them choosing not to have kids. But then you have the ones who will get pregnant and the leftover, I don't want to say minerals from the pill. I don't want to say that because I'm not into science like that. But the effects of it inside of the woman's system causes the baby to be born with a defect. Because all pills get in your bloodstream. And so he's saying that the worst thing that could have happened was the birth control. And many people also believe that. He also, as well as Tariq, agrees that social confusion is promoted mainly to blacks, but it's also promoted to whites as well. And also, this was a very important comment that Spencer made. He said the only way to get out of this whole bottleneck, he said bottleneck, is that the only two groups are those who are too stupid to care, or those that are going to have a strong will to live. Now, I understood perfectly what he meant. The ones that were too stupid enough to care are the ones that basically go to work, go home. They don't read the newspaper. They don't even really watch the news. They watch sports. They pretty much do a lot of leisure activities. They're truckers. They don't really read. They don't care about what's going on in the world. They just care about the simple, basic things in life. Having a family, having fun, saving money, and having a nice house and a nice vehicle. That's it. And having a good job with benefits. And the ones who are going to have a strong will to survive or to live are the ones who also care. They do the research. They take the information that they receive. And those are the ones that use it and apply it properly to where I'm not down with this, agenda. I'm not down with destroying my womb. I'm not down with basically, sexual confusion to where kids don't know who they are. I'm not down with my man wanting to get a vasectomy. I'm pro-life in the sense that I want us to continue to live. He also said that those without an innate passion to live will not survive. Now, many of those people who are like that are those that, and I'm saying this, are those that are involved in these weird movements that are very leftist driven. Those that want to just be mad at the system, mad at everybody, and living a reckless life, doing things recklessly, like people that will just sleep with just anybody, people that are thrill seekers, people that aren't planning for the future, people that are really smart on paper, but they do dumb things in real life. Those people are not going to survive. And he also said that the gender confusion is basically a deconstruction of the idea of basically children having a future. So pretty much the whole purpose of the gender confusion movement is to make sure that children will not have a future, which means that children will not produce. And that's the real new childhood mortality rate. Whereas before, up until 200 years ago, infanticide was very common pre-industrial revolution. Tariq and him agreed with everything. And they had a serious dialogue. But this was the one thing that really struck to me. If Richard Spencer, who was, I will say, the father of the alt-right movement, if Richard Spencer could be in favor of blacks, foundational black Americans, getting reparations, black natives who are descendants of American slavery could get reparations, what's the problem with black immigrants that come over here and not supporting it? The one thing I could say about Tariq Nasheed's Twitter Spaces, it reveals one thing. The most racist white person has nothing against reparations. More conservative white people are for black descendants of American slavery to get reparations more so than liberal whites. And many black immigrants don't want us to even have it. Many of the people that spew anti-black American rhetoric aren't even white on Tariq's Twitter Spaces. They're black immigrants. Case in point, the Somalis, what they said, they didn't even want black people to exist. And that they liked the white racist people during slavery because they was hard on our asses and they kept us in line. That's what one of those Somalians said. And he said, I wish I could be those kind of people and do what they did to you all today. This is what we're dealing with. We're dealing with white extremists and black skin. And this thing, I'm going to tell you, people are picking up on this Twitter space. This is going to change the people of color coalition, because this proves, in the strangest way of things, a white person may not be our ally. A white person may not be our friend, but does that mean that they're really our enemy? And it's a philosophical question, and I ain't praising Richard Spencer, but what I'm saying is not everything is in black and white. And I'm looking at people, real suspect, who look like me. And it's not just people that come from overseas, but it's people right here who share the same lineage as me. Because if you don't support our movement, you're more of an enemy than the likes of a Richard Spencer could ever be. And with that being said, it's your girl, Miss Anna Little Cole. I'm signing out. Make sure you subscribe, like, so we can beat the algorithm together. Make sure you comment. Make sure you share. And I'll talk to you real soon. Later.